would you agree to say that one of the key words is the notion of responsibility?
Of course.
If you agree with that, in that case, how could you explain how, according to you, why is there such a, you said yourself it's not only a buzzword, and I fully agree. In the same time, it has really become a kind of a hot topic. More and more people talk about it, more and more people, organizations try to really do something with it. But if we say that sustainability has to do with responsibility, why do you think it has become such a hot topic? Because isn't it so that an organization, by definition, is responsible from start?
Yes, it has become a hot topic because, as I mentioned before, very often people talk about sustainability and they mean environment. And you know that we are living in a green, what I would call a green wave. And that's why, for the moment, a lot of people are talking about sustainability, but they should say environment, because, as I mentioned before, it's much more than just the environment part. And we all know that if we go on and work like we do today, we're going to damage the future of our kids.
Yes, and as you said, exactly, one of the key words is environment. And actually what is kind of nice with this word is that environment can mean, of course, nature, the kind of ecological part of it, but environment, it's also working environment. It's also, for an organization, all the stakeholders around. Would you agree with that? That in that case, that's why it can also, the word environment, actually, when you talk about sustainability, can be understood in a much broader way. It's any kind of environment.
Okay, that's why I mentioned also the other two pillars, the social pillar and the economical pillar. And in the social pillar, I would take the example of the protection of health and pollution for the people, and also the information and the training of the people. They should know what to do to prevent the environment, not only the environment, forest and so on, but also the working environment and the environment at home. Because one of the things that we all teach our kids is to reduce waste. And that's also part of them. So we need also the social pillar, especially about training, educating people, and then the economical pillar, where we know that we should work on something with not only looking at the bottom line, but also when we look at the bottom line, be sure that we're not going to harm the future.
Yes, this is a very good transition to the next question, exactly as you said, bottom line. This is also one of the key words when you think about organization, the board's role and sustainability. So as you mentioned, you are an active board member. You mentioned Ceratizit. You're also a board member of other organizations. But let's start and focus first on Ceratizit and your experience on Ceratizit. Maybe first, can you just say in a few words, describe the actually specific role of the board at Ceratizit?
Okay, at Ceratizit, we have a special structure. We have two boards. We have two executive boards. We have two boards, one executive board and one supervisory board. Till last year, I was chairman of the executive board, and now I'm a member of the supervisory board. And the executive board is coordinating the work of all the Ceratizit group around the world. We are responsible for everything that we're doing, and we have to report to our non-executive board, which are our shareholders. So we have our shareholders just above the executive board.
Yes, thank you. So if we think about, or if we look at the several aspects of sustainability, as you mentioned yourself, and if you think about Ceratizit, how actually did the process go at the board's level when it comes to to identify which issues are relevant for Ceratizit?
Okay, We started, of course, with everything that is relating to environment. So energy reduction, conserving the quality of the air, trying not to pollute. And then we went to recycling. Today we have 3 recycling plants around the world, one in Niederkorn, Luxembourg, one in Reutte, Austria, and one in Shanghai, China, where we recycle more than 30% of our raw materials. That was the first part we did, and then we published what we call a code of conduct, telling people how they should work to preserve the environment, to preserve not only the external environment, nature, but also the internal environment, how to do business. We're very strict regarding all the aspect of conflict minerals. When we go to purchase some raw material, we take care that we are not in conflict with what we call fair trade, and also we don't want any kid work for the material. We go and we prove that. So we go and see where the materials are coming from. We check that, and these are the points that are coming from our board. They said, okay, if you go somewhere, take care of these points. And all our people within the group have a code of conduct in their own language to make sure that they all know our rules. But we have also internal, what we call health and safety instruction, explaining how you have to behave within the companies. And in our code of conduct, we have also an ethic code, how to do business with people and to do fair business and totally legal also.
Yes, and among all these issues, how did it begin? Because actually Ceratizit is really a very well-established company with more than 95 years of existence.
Yeah.
How did things go? Would you say that these issues were relatively new? Or was it kind of from start that some of these topics were really in the mind of actually your father who founded the company?
All these issues started with the bottom line. So at the beginning, when I look backwards, 30 years backwards, we were only considering bottom line and not looking at environmental sustainability. And one of the issues were the raw materials. And the raw materials are making about 30% of our cost. So it's very important. And then we said, how could we gain some money on the raw materials? And then we talked with our expert and said, one of the ideas would be to recycle the material. At that time, it was very difficult. So it took us a few years to develop a project, how to do it. And that's how we started with that. And then we went on looking for energy, waste of any kind of material, waste of energy, gas, and so on. And that's how it started. After that, the board said, okay, we also have to go further than just the environmental part of it. And we went on to the social part where we train our people about waste, about energy, about keeping the environment clean, and about responsibility that they all have within the group.
And how would you describe the process between the board and the management, the top management of Ceratizit for these issues? Was it more the board itself which came up and asked the management to do something, or was it more the management who decided, as you described, to do something and then come up to the board?
It started with the management, because when the board, we're getting, every year we're getting some financial figures from the board where they want the company to go. And mostly there used to be financial figures at the beginning, like bottom line, cash flow, and so on. And but then they came and said, yes, but not only that, if you do it, you should also take care of the environment. And then we came up, when we built up our strategy, we came up with the investment when we asked the board for the investment. And every time we have a new investment, they said, okay, How is it with our environment? What are we going to gain with this new investment? Are we going to be more productive? Are we going to be safer? Are we going to be better in the environment? Are we going to make it easier for people? And that was a question that we always had before they gave us a green light for the investment.
Okay, so you would say that because also often when you discuss sustainability, some of the key words and one of the challenge is this, sometimes difficult balance to find between short-term market performance and actually long-term relationships with the environment. And when you speak to some, they actually have a view that these two are completely contradictory, that they have really this short-term performance and this aspect of long-term respect of the environment doesn't work. How do you see that?
But there we have a fantastic advantage. We are nor an American company looking for quarterly results, nor a company pushing for really short-term results. The big advantage that we have is we are privately owned and our owners are looking for long-term. So everything that is investment in environment is of course an investment for long-term. And they agree on that. If long-term results are guaranteed, we get the okay for the investment. And that's a very, very big advantage against people who have quarterly reports and quarterly figures to present.
Yes, indeed. And would you say this maybe could be a transition to your other experience with your other boards? Because you have been and still are, actually since, as you mentioned, you've left the executive board of Ceratizit. You are an independent director, you are active in many boards, but actually you were already active in many boards even while at Ceratizit, so it's not new for you. But you have really a very broad and rich experience. And you are an active board member and even chairman in actually a very diverse organization. Could you maybe name a few and then tell us first what in your views are actually similar in these boards to the way you've been working with sustainability at Ceratizit? Okay. And then the second question will be what is different? What is different?
First of all, I must explain how I choose the boards where I accept to be. It has to be one of my interests. So I'm president of the supervisory board of the group Loche, and I'm a car fanatic, so I have a lot of fun with cars, so that's why I took it. And I also believe regarding sustainability, the automotive industry is a very important player in it. And so there is quite a lot of things to do. On the other side, I always were pushing people for continuous education. And this year I got the privilege to get president of the Lycée Privé Emile Metz, that we are restructuring and where we're going digital. And there it's very important also, as I mentioned, the social pillar of the sustainability to tell people at the short age that they have to be responsible for the future, they have to be responsible in what they do. And also we are building some technicians there also that if we go further in the technology, it should not go on the payroll of environment and how do you call it, a better world. So we should keep always the better world for the future in mind. And then another where I'm very proud of it is I'm president of the LIST, Luxembourg Institute of Science and Research. There we are working, we have one group working effectively on everything that has to be with sustainability. And there we have a lot of projects in this area. What is interesting is to see that although some are manufactured, other ones are just only, how do you call that, they're only making resell, and the other one are training and making trainings and research. They all keep always in mind sustainability, because today we see what has been done in the last 100 years, and then we have seen how much the industry evolved, but also that they evolved in some countries and in some without any respect of any kind of an environment, nor the human environment, nor the economic. The only environment that they looked at was the economical environment. And it's very important now to work on these. And I'm trying to put the effort and say, if we do something, which we have to do it better, but you have to do it better without harming the sustainability in any of the three pillars.
So how does it take form in this board? Very concretely, for example, do you have in these boards, a kind of dedicated sustainability committee? Do you have someone in the board who is specifically responsible for these issues? And how do you collaborate with your management? I mean, the management of these organizations.
In none of my boards, we have a sustainability committee. But when we come to the objectives, when we come to the project that we want to do and to the investment, we always ask, what are you doing for sustainability? And that's always one of the questions that it's going to be yes or no for the investment. Okay. But we have not a special person working on sustainability. The only case is the list where we have one of the three pillars of the list is just health and sustainability, where we will definitely work on sustainability.
Okay. And may I ask you why it's this way? Is it because you so clear, no clear benefits of doing so? Is there a specific reason, or is just it was so and you feel it worked well, so you keep on?
Because I believe that in the boards where I am for the moment, sustainability has always been an issue. So we don't need, I always say you need a committee for sustainability if you have nothing, if you're not doing about sustainability, if you don't know even how to write sustainability. And there are a lot of companies who just have a committee of sustainability, but they don't even know what is really sustainability. Mm-hmm. So very often a committee of sustainability is just for the image of the company and not for the result.
Okay, so you mean that
so we live it, so we don't need to show it.
Yes, okay. So you mean that in your boards, sustainability is here, whatever the subject, and would you say it's really integrated and embedded in any topics you can talk about, be it investment, be it more human resources, as you mentioned earlier, health and safety? So it's would you say it's really a natural part of the discussion?
Yes, I would say yes.
Okay.
Okay, but don't forget, I have my pink sunglasses always on when I'm in the board, because you see your own boards different than you see the other one's board.
Yeah, absolutely. And how would you say, again, if you think about the several boards you are in, where would you say lies the biggest challenge to go from what you're describing right now, the fact that on the board level, sustainability is integrated, it's part of the discussion. And then again, back to what we said in the introduction, how does the organization walk the talk? How do you do so that words in the boardroom really becomes action throughout the organization?
That's a good question.
Maybe if you take an example of one of your board today.
But as I mentioned before, we don't specifically work on sustainability. When we go somewhere, you just mentioned HR, there we have some internal training for people. In all the boards that we have internal training for people just regarding energy, waste, health, and so on, just to make the environment sustainable. When we look at the car business, of course, we're looking how could we reduce the emissions of the cars. And that's always a subject. You know, for example, my group is selling Volkswagen Audi cars, and you know about the emission scandals that we had about that.
Yeah.
So that was a big issue for our board meeting, because that had economical impact on bottom line, and we're still not out of it yet. So that forced to work on sustainability, and although as a reseller we could not do a lot about that, but we could at least do our internal part and work internally on things that we could do.
Okay.
So it's depending from board to board, but as I said, it's integrated in the board and it's part of the board. It's not a specific topic. When it comes to investment, when it comes to putting money in somewhere, we always ask, what is the effect on?
Yeah, okay, good. Another aspect is also Ceratizit is really a global organization, started in Luxembourg, then merged with a company from Austria. And along the years, you opened organizations in really many countries around the world. And today, Ceratizit is really a true global company. In the same time, the other organizations you are boards you are in are more based in Luxembourg.
Local companies,
but based in Luxembourg. Would you say, or how would you describe the difference, maybe, in the way you discuss sustainability, in the way you integrate these sustainability issues at Ceratizit, true global organization, and at the Lycée Technique you mentioned, the LIST, the Da Vinci Association, which are again locally really focused.
Okay, we should also not forget that the only producing industry on the board is Ceratizit. The other ones are just retailers or academic companies, and they're not producing anything. So it's totally different. That's why when I look at the Ceratizit group, definitely we have all this problem from the value chain, from raw material to finished products, and also over the office to green offices, trying to reduce the whole paperwork and so on. Every day we can do a small step reducing what we call muda, the waste, and it's very easy to see what we're doing there. On the other one, where we are only service companies, like for me a school is a service company, it's much more difficult, but we can also do it in small steps, because we have to keep the environment clean, we have to teach people to explain them how to do it, how to work with the environment. So it's totally different, and there you have also different people and different objectives. When you look at the school, a school, for example, is not regarding normally bottom line. It should be a zero, a black zero, and that's it. A list, we are not a company that should make money. We should invest in our own to grow the company, to get it better, and so on. Where in Ceratizit we have a bottom line, and our shareholders are also looking at the bottom line and pushing us with financial objectives. At the other ones, we have different objectives, more important than just the financial objective. So it's a totally different thing, but the sustainability is for the social and the environment aspect the same.
Yeah, okay. So you would say that actually the differences are not that much linked to the fact that it's international or not, but it more has to do with the difference in the sector and the activity itself.
No. Okay. We should, however, know that the sustainability problem in Luxembourg is different than the sustainability problem in China or in India, or if we go to the Congo or South Central Africa, where we have children working and so on, and people working You know all about the blood diamond, blood gold, and so that's totally different because they have different values. So I didn't say that it's always everywhere the same, but they have different values. And when you look at the pollution, for example, in China, 5 years ago, nobody looked at pollution in China. When you look at what they try today, it's totally different. When you look at waste in China, if you go through a Chinese town, not a big town, you see you have waste all around the world, the city. And I'm not talking about India. So there's still a lot to do. But when we talk in the board, we don't go specifically. That's what we're doing in the local board, where we're trying also. It's much more complicated to explain to an English guy that he should not throw his waste on the street. He should put it in a bag. And he said, okay, but I have no bag to put it in, and the bag is expensive. So it's very different. So we have to take care that different countries have different values and also different education.
Yes. And
we should not also forget the rich Europe only discovered sustainability, I would say, about 20 years ago.
Yeah, it depends how exactly how you see that. But back to this. And what you also said, you mentioned a very key word actually in this discussion and in the current context. You mentioned this global value chain. And this is really also something which has unfortunately, due to the current situation, become so hot on the agenda since the current pandemic situation and all the really terrible negative consequences that we have seen and that we've just started to see, and the consequences on the economy and our societies at large. Today, there are more and more discussions, articles about, is it the end of globalization? How do we need to tackle this global value chain? Shall we focus more on actually short, local value chain? Would you say that the current situation has changed your view on these topics and your willingness and readiness to work differently with your boards? How do you see that?
First of all, I always said, and every crisis is bringing us a new opportunity. And you cannot get rid of the crisis, and you can cry all the day and say it's horrible, it's a disaster. But you can also go and say, what should I do to avoid the next time? How could I avoid doing the same mistake a second time? And that's more what I'm thinking and what I'm pushing. We learned quite a lot in our group, in all our groups, with this crisis, with this pandemic. In our company, it was always impossible to make home office. You know that, you were there, and every time you said, I need to stay at home for one day, it was always difficult because we had always people in the board saying, home office is no good. And here, from one day to the other one, we had hundreds of people sitting at home and they had to work at home. So as a magician, with his, how do you call it, with his magic stick, it worked. So that's a great opportunity. We used to travel a lot. Now we noticed that there's a lot of trouble that could be avoided just by making video conferences. When you look at the technology of today, and this chat is a very good example. I don't know how many people are online, but there are more than a few. And it's quite interesting to see what we can do. Of course, we're missing the social aspect, but the social aspect, you need to travel once a year and then you can do it. And here you could avoid a lot of things you can make things easier, and we have to rethink our whole working environment and space. But I would not say that we're trying to get shorter conditions and that we should take everything back home. No, we still have advantage with some less developed countries. We have advantage in getting closer to the raw material. We have advantage in being close to our customer, because it's more difficult to serve an Asian customer with special made, tailor-made goods from China than to serve him from Luxembourg. It's much easier, and we should keep that.
Yeah.
And then also we should not forget that people have different values, they have different culture, and sometimes our normal behavior in Europe could be disturbing in Asia or US, and that's something. Get local to local and think global. Yeah.
So Jacques, we are heading to more or less the end of our talk. To end this talk today, what would you recommend our participants in 2 or 3? Do you have any words? Do you have any best practice to share? Again, when it's about really walk the talk in sustainability from a board's perspective.
I would not come with best practice and so on, because it's too specific. But I would say, don't forget that everything you do without looking at sustainability in your business or private life, your kids will pay for it. And I believe that's something we should all keep in mind. If you're not harming yourself, if you take a short-term profit, think of your kids and just think everything you're doing wrong in sustainability, they will have to pay for, even if you cash the money today.
It's a very good, I would say, red thread to have. Good vision. Very motivating one. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Jacques.
I'm happy that I survived.
Have you? So now, Alain, are there any questions from the participants that you would like to share with us?
Yes, indeed. Now the questions are coming, and actually quite quite a few. I cannot even keep up here. The first question actually was quite interesting from Anu, and being said that the changes or the suggestions seem to be more of an incrementational level, and the question is asked, so what needs to be done to really have a transformative approach or even an exponential change in terms of what the board could do pertaining sustainability?
That's a quite good question, but I think it's quite easy. In a board, it should be as everywhere in real life, leading by example. Show that you're working and every day you're thinking about sustainability, you're talking about sustainability, and you're also acting in sustainability. And the other ones will follow. I always say, ne fais pas à ma femme ce que tu ne voudrais pas que je fasse à la tienne. So be an example in sustainability and you will be fine. And the whole board will follow you. That's my experience, and I believe it's working quite well.
But
you should not try to force it.
Well, then a question from me personally in that sense. I mean, you say not forcing it, but how can you actually, force people or have ways for some people to understand the importance of sustainability as a decision-making tool? I mean, I'm sure that in your boards, you've had situations where individuals do not necessarily feel too concerned about it. So how have you been able to overcome that resistance?
Okay, that's, of course, there are some resistance, because very often when you go and you talk, especially when I'm mainly speaking about manufacturing company, because there you need very often a lot of investment for making it better and making it more sustainable. And there you have, very often you have discussions and people saying, yes, but you know, this equipment is going to be more expensive and I got no more result. Then we say, okay, if you come to the result that we would like to have, we don't want you to push it further, but also we have to look at the people around you, and we have also to make sure that you're not harming anybody. And then people agree on that, and they come to that. And very often, you know, nobody likes to work in a dirty environment. So in a production environment, if you go for sustainability, people will see that and will also accept that. So you don't need a lot. But on the other hand, if you put higher targets there and then sustainability is going to be a constraint to get the target, then you run into problem.
Okay. One question pertaining sustainable finance, and we agreed on ILA that the subject should not really be necessarily just on sustainable finance, and as Jacques mentioned, we're looking at it from an entrepreneur manufacturing point of view as well. But Jacques, when you consider, let's say, decisions on the board, how do existing or potentially future sustainable finance regulations, such as new reporting requirement, ESG requirements, how do they fit in your strategic operational decision making?
That was never an issue in our board. Financial were very, very less an issue. How to finance, we had always the CFO who was in charge of that, and the board had the money or hadn't the money, and we never talked about green finance or something like that. We never had to be talking about green bonds or something. Is that your question? That was never an issue for us.
Was not necessarily in regard specific to green bonds, but
no. For example, I took the example.
Okay, no, perfect. In terms of one of the questions from Catherine is sustainability is an asset and should be measured too. So basically, on the board level, I mean, from hearing you, I would say no, but you need to give the answer in that. I mean, did you use any type of tools or key performance indicators on the board level to be able to measure those?
To measure sustainability? No. But you know, it's difficult to measure sustainability, but what we had in all the projects that we worked on sustainability, for example, recycling, there we said, we would like to come till the year 2020, we would like to have more than 30% of our raw material internally recycled. Mm-hmm. So there we had something. Also, when we look at the emission of the company, we set some targets on emission, on energy consumption, on gas consumption. There we put some target on it. Yes, we did, but no global, because I don't know what kind of KPI we could put on global sustainability, because also, as I mentioned, how would you measure the social aspect of sustainability? You can only, the easiest to control is the economical one. Mm-hmm. And sometimes also the environmental, when you look at the pollution that you're doing, how much you reduce. That's what we have when we look at the green meetings all around the world. They talk about emission, they talk about carbon footprint and these kind of issues where they can measure. But that's not a global sustainability index that we could have. Mm-hmm. But I would be happy if Catherine could give me help, and if she has some tools to do that, I would be quite happy to hear from that.
Well, I'm sure she's hearing the message. Actually, questions from my side, as Sophie mentioned, you as a captain of industry and having been in Luxembourg active for so many years, what is your take on where is Luxembourg going? I mean, I always take as an example the famous Rifkin study, and where do you see Luxembourg sustainability scorecards in regards to latest developments?
Okay, but when I look at Luxembourg and everything in Luxembourg, I must say for the moment, everything that comes from government is more a hurdle or a bullet on your foot than a help. Let's take a few examples. They had put the guichet unique, where we should be able to get help, very simple and so on. We have the Ministère de l'Environnement with the Commodore, where they always said we have to simplify that and to help the industry. And when you could look at that, it's not even a green, let's say a green government. And that's for me a big problem. We would like to be in an image in Luxembourg, and then we put the border of what is feasible so high that we harming the industry. And we are, and I would call it, we are a paper state. We are regulated more than we need, and everything is regulated in Luxembourg. That's horrible.
Mm. And in terms of your past and still to some degree activity at FEDIL, for example, I mean, I'm sure that FEDIL under your leadership had also a number of issues pertaining how Luxembourg is governed from a sustainability point of view. I guess the statement you just made would reflect those issues as well.
Yes, but at FEDIL, that's one of the only boards when Sophie asked me if we had a sustainability group. At FEDIL, when I was there, we had a sustainability group working, but especially on everything that is sustainability, environment and economic for the industry, because FEDIL is just mainly for the industry. Mm-hmm. And there were the sustainability group working on that. And we had quite a lot of contact with, on one side, government, and on the other side, with the different administration, ETM, Administration de l'Environnement, and so on, just to discuss about it. But when we look at the outcome, it was very, very, very poor.
Mm. Okay.
Unfortunately.
No, fully understood. Another question from Catherine. In this accelerating digital world, which actions have you decided with respect to cybersecurity?
None.
Well, that was
but you know, we have a very, very, very closed informatics system, and we had only till today only one problem with hackers in Austria, where we were cut down for about 2 days because somebody hacked our IT system. But you know, the more you protect yourself, the more you're getting vulnerable.
Correct. Sophie, I think we're coming to the end of the Q&A session. If you want to take back over, because I think we have another 5 to 8 minutes to go.
Yes, thank you, Alain, and thank you all for your questions. Actually, I think we can close our chat for today. I will just really would like to thank Jacques very much for his participation today.
You're welcome.
Any last word from yourself, Jacques?
Yes. Keep in mind that sustainability has 3 pillars, not only ecology, but it has social, economic, and environment pilot. And keep in mind, don't harm your kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jacques.
Thank you.
And to all, please you can already save the date for the next coffee chat from this sustainability group, which will be on June 12th, so in 2 weeks, more or less, same time. And our guest speaker will be Mr. Ludovic Dardinier, who is the Managing Director of Hydro Aluminium. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, a nice weekend. Bye-bye.